Next Gen Madden is just a few short weeks away, and while we still haven't seen any official gameplay, footage, or trailers, or even a feature list aside from some of the few little tidbits they touched on months ago, one thing is abundantly clear. Next Gen Madden cannot be like current gen. If we have these same issues going forward to next gen, we're in for a really bad time. And in today's video, I'm going to discuss all of these current gen problems that absolutely cannot make it over to next gen. Now, we've heard that a big focus is on next gen, as it should be. We've heard that that's kind of where all the attention is, and that's why current gen is just continuing to get worse by the day. But if next gen comes out and we're still dealing with these same issues we've been dealing with for years that just progressively keep getting worse, that's going to be really bad for the state of Madden going forward. Now, if you're new to the channel and you always want to be up to date on the latest Madden news, especially the next gen info and footage that should be dropping any day now whenever EA decides to release it, make sure you subscribe, turn the bell icon on so you never miss any of these important videos when they go live. And I saw some of you in the comment section last video saying, hey Eric, you sound different. This doesn't sound like you. I was a little under the weather, but we're back. They can't hold down the inspirational one forever, so you guys noticed, but we're back and we're good and we're ready to go. So current gen Madden is, arguably one of the worst Maddens ever. And at the beginning of the year, it was getting so much, backlash, the lowest rated game ever. And I thought that was a little harsh because there's definitely been worse Maddens in 21. But we fast forward 2 months later and we're starting to see the game get progressively worse. Now, this happens every year. You're in two camps every year when the game drops. Usually, if you're more of the offline player, you're not happy with the direction of the game or the fact that the improvements aren't there where they should be, or that, it's not advancing like it should. And then you have your online players who are just excited to get online, compete again. You see that some of the things that overpowered the game last year or plagued the game have been fixed or at least touched up to a point where it's not as big of an issue. So you're having fun doing some new things and having a little bit of a different game to learn in a competitive environment. But then after those first couple months, plenty of updates, too much tweaking and tinkering, and the game starts reverting back to its old ways. Those old problems start showing themselves again because underneath all of it, it's still the same code. They just keep fixing things and, band-aiding things and trying to fix those issues, week to week, month to month. But eventually you jump to the next game and you start uncovering some of that stuff, and then it starts showing itself again. And that's why a lot of people for a long time have wanted the game completely rebuilt. It just seems like it's been time for that long ago, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Now, of course, this is where next gen comes into play because there are rumors of a rebuilt game. I don't 100% think that's the case, but I would take certain aspects of the game being completely rebuilt. So saying you're not taking the whole game down to the ground floor, but maybe certain aspects of it, like maybe blocking is completely rebuilt, or AI, defensive logic is completely redone. Certain aspects, I think that could be possible. And we've also heard rumors that all the focus is on next gen, which it probably should be in a sense. You're launching the next gen title, you need to put a lot of focus on it. And I think that's why current gen has really just deteriorated faster than I've seen any Madden deteriorate. Because like I said in a few videos ago, it seems like the B team is the one that's updating current gen. It's not that they have left it by the wayside, because this is the most updated Madden we've ever seen through the first couple months of the year, but the updates really aren't making the game even close to better. Things they're saying they're fixing are not fixed, and that's because it seems like the people with the most power and knowledge, they're on next gen and they're trying to get that out by release date. So when we go to next gen, we have to first look at like all these problems with current gen and what cannot translate over. Just look at the modes in general, right? We already know franchise has, it's been the same for years. There's no excitement there. The franchise community is the most bored they've ever been. If they go to next gen and there's nothing new there, or if at the very least the current gen updates that are going to start rolling out next month, if those don't carry over to next gen immediately, that's going to be a problem. And then going forward, you look at Face of the Franchise, it got a lot of work this year, but it still fell flat. It wasn't the quality mode that we come to, I don't want to say come to expect, but of the modes of old we come to expect. We're seeing a mode that was really broken, that a lot of things didn't make sense and people didn't like it. You look at the yard, something I've been really big on. I thought it was so much fun. It's the mode I've still played the most in Madden 21, but here's the thing, the replayability of modes like that can only exist with certain features, and these things were omitted from the yard in year one. That just seems like a huge oversight, like play a friend, for example. That needs to be there in these online modes. It's such a big thing when you have a mode like that. You can only play against random people for so long before you want to say, I want to take my couple friends and team up with these other guys I know, or play against these other guys I know, or play against other people in the community, or play against other competitive players. Let's see who's really the best at this particular mode. You can't do that right now, and after a while that makes the mode have not as much replayability. It's such I'm not going to say a simple thing to implement, but it's a simple idea that should be there with any game, as online is such a big driver of these games now. You look at Ultimate Team as a mode. The content that has been put out, I think, has been very good actually, but the quantity of the content isn't what we've come to expect, and with a mode like that, the constant daily content is really what drives that mode. You know, then you look at online regs, you know, not something that's really been spiced up too much over the years in any type of way. You have a game here where you have a lot of modes that are interesting, but the modes themselves don't have enough within them to really keep that replayability going unless you're super hardcore or just dedicated to the game. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the fan base in certain areas drop off this year, and they're just kind of getting fed up with the game. If you carry that same type of just not depth right into next gen, it's only going to create more problems and make people not want to upgrade. And I know if you bought it on current gen, you can upgrade for free on next gen, which is a huge thing, but the money was still wasted one way or the other if the game does not see significant improvements, especially if that's where the dev team has been heavily focused over the last few months. We need to see that. Then you go to servers. The servers are getting worse every year, and for a game, again, online gaming is such a huge thing. The servers need to be stable, and they've just been not that every year, and they're getting worse. It's almost never been easier to disconnect from a game of Madden than it is now, to actually cheat and disconnect. I mean, there's some, you know, you can go back to PS3, Xbox 360 days, there were still some easy ways some of those years to disconnect as well. I remember those years, but this year, it's one of the easiest I've ever seen to just disconnect from a game and have the game not count. And what's even worse is the fact that they can't seem to tackle this problem, but the fact that, you know, there's channels even set up by EA to submit this, you know, proof. It's a different time we live in. There's social media. Everybody's got recording, you know, capture cards, and, you know, they can record on their systems, or, you know, it's so easy to prove, hey, this guy's a repeat offender. This guy continues to purposely disconnect from the game. These things get investigated. A lot of these people don't get banned. They're still allowed to play. They're still allowed to get rewards. They might get banned for a week, but then they're right back. And even in the competitive scene, some of these people are passing the audits when there's tons and tons of footage and just like proof that these guys were cheating maliciously, you know, breaking terms of service, and they're still being allowed to compete for real money. You know, the answer to all of this is, we'll make the servers stable, something they haven't been for years and something they've just been getting progressively worse. But if you can't do that, if you can't tackle that quickly, at least use the information that's being put forward and not letting these people pass on to continue to play when they're clearly, you know, maliciously taking advantage of the game in a way that we already know what the intent is, especially when they're repeat offenders. But the servers, when you go to next gen, I could see the servers only getting worse, because you have to think that on top of the fact that they've been getting worse for years, you're going to a whole new system now, a whole new console generation. There's potential of cross-platform, or at least you're going to have cross-gen play between each, you know, system like Xbox or you know, Sony. The servers could possibly only get worse, and that would be a huge. If you go to next gen and we're still having these disconnect issues getting worse and worse, like, you're going to keep turning more people off to the game. This is something that we hope when we jump to next gen that we can leave some of this behind. And of course, there's always going to be disconnect issues. There's always going to be people that drop connection because of their internet and think it's the game. That's never going to completely go away, but you can see how it's gotten worse, and there's a certain amount of it that is on EA to fix. Then you look at gameplay. An area that Madden has always struggled, especially the last couple generations. A lot of this going back to what I said earlier. We feel like the game needs to be rebuilt. There's so much old legacy code. It doesn't matter how many times you fix something, those same problems continue to pop up. They might not pop up at the beginning of the year because you're putting out something that is a little bit new, coding wise, because you've made changes. But what happens is all the feedback comes in, the complaints, they go back, you know, they see how people are interacting with the game, what's working, what's not working, and then they start doing those tinkering boring updates, the ones that most of us hate. We love the updates where you're just fixing the blatant bugs, but when you go back and tinker with how this reacts with this and how this reacts with that, then these same old problems come back. Contains are broken once again. Blocking is some of the worst it's ever been. The offensive line in Madden 21 is honestly an embarrassment because of the disengaged blocking that you can get by putting defensive linemen on contains. They just come through, the offensive line will touch them and just let them go. It's a disengaged glitch. It's still 2 months into the game, still an issue. It's honestly one of the most laughable things in the game. But it all goes back to blocking being broken for years. Some years it got better, some years it got worse, but it's never been completely rebuilt. So there's always going to be bad blocking every year. It just depends. Is it going to be worse at the beginning of the year? Or is it going to be worse 2 to 3 months into the year after they update the game too much? You know, you have dropped interceptions being a huge problem right now. There's like legit bugs where you cannot really catch interceptions that you're supposed to catch. And I know there's people that say, oh, well, dropping interceptions is realistic. It should happen. Sure, it should happen sometimes, but there's like legit clear bugs in the game right now where you just can't even get interception animations, or the game, you know, thinks that you got a successful interception animation and then you drop the ball and it becomes incomplete. Those are actual legit problems that they have still not been able to tackle. The QB draw is back. This becomes a thing almost every year for at least a month out of the year, where the QB draw is almost impossible to defend because the defensive players just don't react to it the right way. They just react like clueless to a QB draw. Why does this happen at some point every year? Because it's still, like we said, the same coding underneath everything. So when they fix it, you go to the next year's game, it's fixed, but then they start tinkering and kind of pulling back some of those layers again to go fix other things, and then boom, here this problem comes back again because the root cause of the problem has never been fixed, which is maybe just the logic of the defensive AI or whatever it could be. It's never been actually rebuilt, redone. And while there are some rumors of that for next gen, that's a rumor I really hope is true, because that's what needs to happen. Because if we go to next gen, carry all this over, and then for the next generation we keep uncovering the same blocking problems, the same coverage bugs, the same bugs where randomly players start dropping the ball and just can't catch it, the same bugs where contains just cannot work as they're intended to, and then on top of that we still don't have the modes progressing at a rate that they should be, or where they, you know, are just not being where they should be for this point in time of where the game is at in terms of just years being put into building this game from its inception. You're gonna really lose even more the fan base than ever. I'm a person that gets excited about Madden every year. I was enjoying it for the first month and a half. A lot of online players were. Again, if you were offline, you weren't, and it was understandable. But as of today, right now, making this video, I really don't know a single person that is happy with Madden 21 current gen. And if you expect to drag all these people to next gen and have the same product, but it just looks a little better and it loads a little faster, you're gonna lose even more of the fan base than you already have. We need to get it together. We need it to be better. Well, we're in for another long generation of just a game continuing to get worse. While it might be more fun some years than others, it might be better some years than others, the gradual overall graph, if you will, is still continuing to trend down, and we need to move it in the opposite direction. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Drop your thoughts below. What do you think? Check out some of the other videos right here, and as always, I will see you guys next time.